Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're doing something super cool. We are mapping out nearly a century of global sports history. Just follow along with those perfectly synced on-screen closed captions, and together we're going to unpack the ultimate global soccer footprint. Okay, let's dive right into this. 23. That is the magic number we're looking at today. It represents the absolute total number of World Cup tournaments held or scheduled to be held between the very first inaugural event back in 1930 all the way to the upcoming 2026 tournament. 23 massive global gatherings. But the real story here? It isn't just how many tournaments there have been, it's exactly where they've been played. So take a look at this absolutely brilliant graphic designed by Harris Salim. Seriously, what an incredible way to visualize almost 100 years of data. Your eyes just instantly snap to that soccer ball globe right there in the center, don't they? But the real genius of this chart lies in those concentric rings radiating out from the map. They perfectly organize the geography, the frequency of hosting, and the exact historical dates for every single tournament. It's a massive amount of information packed into one space, so let's break this whole thing down, piece by piece. Part 1. A global soccer footprint. To really get a handle on this graphic, we need to break down the continents. And remember to keep an eye on those prominent closed captions right there in the lower third of your screen to help guide you. Let's pull out that innermost ring from the graphic. When we do that, a massive geographical disparity is instantly revealed. Just look at these 4 slices. Out of our 23 total tournaments, Europe holds a massive 11 of them. South America has 5, North America has 4, and then all of Asia and Africa combined, they account for just 3. So historically speaking, the footprint of this so-called global game has been heavily concentrated in very specific parts of the world. Which brings us to part 2, Europe's historic dominance. We're going to match our pacing with the on-screen text here to really help these historical facts sink in. If we look at the blue section on our map, you can see exactly what I mean about that dominance. Europe has hosted 11 out of the 23 tournaments. That's literally nearly half of all World Cups ever played. And this blue slice traces a huge timeline. It starts all the way back in Italy in 1934, winds its way through decades of European hosts, and wraps up most recently in Russia in 2018. And when we actually chunk out the data from that outer blue ring, we discover something else that's super interesting. Europe isn't just hosting frequently, it relies heavily on repeat hosts. Just look at these stalwarts on the screen: Italy, France, and Germany. Our graphic shows they have all hosted the tournament exactly twice. They're essentially acting as the absolute bedrock of European soccer infrastructure. Moving counterclockwise, we hit part 3, South America's deep roots. Let's explore the true origins of the tournament. Right here at the very edge of the purple slice, we find the absolute genesis point, 1930. The data highlights this specific point, showing us that Uruguay hosted the very first tournament. This was the exact moment that kicked off the global phenomenon we all know today. Now, while South America undeniably has incredibly deep historical roots, serving as host 5 times in total, the hosting duties haven't been quite as consolidated as they are over in Europe. Take a look at this table we pulled from the purple slice. Argentina, Chile, and Uruguay have all hosted once. Meanwhile, only Brazil has managed to bring the global event back to its own soil for a second time, hosting once in 1950 and then again in 2014. Part 4. Expanding to new frontiers. Let's shift our focus to the yellow slice now, and we'll let those closed captions visually reinforce this massive shift in geography. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer historical contrast it highlights. Seriously, look at this. We have the old guard of Europe, right? 11 tournaments spanning an 84-year history from 1934 to 2018. Compare that to all of Asia and Africa combined. They have only hosted 3 tournaments in total, and their hosting history didn't even begin until the year 2002. So for the vast majority of its existence, the World Cup wasn't truly exploring the whole world. But if we walk chronologically through the yellow slice of the graphic, we can see exactly when and how the tournament finally broke out of that Europe and America's binary. It was a total 21st century awakening. First venturing to Asia with Japan and South Korea in 2002, then down to Africa with South Africa in 2010, and most recently over to the Middle East with Qatar in 2022. It took well over 70 years, but the map finally started to fill out. This leads us right to part 5. The future is co-hosted. We're moving into the final green section now, and the data reveals a massive fundamental shift in how this tournament operates. The number 3. Look really closely at the North American section on the screen. Mexico actually holds a completely unique status on this entire global map. It's the only nation out of all of them tagged with 3 hosting years, 1970, 1986, and the upcoming tournament in 2026. No other country on Earth has hosted 3 times. But how they are hosting in 2026? Well, that's what we really need to talk about. Check out the legend on the left side of the graphic. There is a tiny little asterisk defined there. It reads, represents World Cup co-hosted with other countries. Do not let the tiny size of that symbol fool you. That single asterisk signifies the biggest change in modern World Cup history. If we scan this entire visual map, we only find that asterisk in 2 places. First, we see it back in the yellow section for 2002, marking that 2-nation split between Japan and South Korea. And then, we see it absolutely exploding in the green section for 2026. We are literally moving from a 2-nation co-host experiment in Asia straight to a massive 3-nation continental effort for North America. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how North America's total of 4 tournaments is so heavily weighted by the future. 2026 is an unprecedented collaboration. You've got Canada hosting for the very first time, the United States for its second, and Mexico for its record-breaking third. And they are all sharing that crucial asterisk. The scale of the event has grown so large that it is literally requiring a continental megalith to contain the whole shebang. We've watched the tournament evolve from a single-nation event in Uruguay way back in 1930 to entire continents teaming up to share the load today. So I want you to look at this data one last time and ask yourself a question. With the sheer scale of the 2026 tournament, will a single nation ever be able to host the World Cup alone again? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this breakdown completely changed how you view the map of global soccer.